What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the garage. We got a cool little project today. See, recently I purchased a projector. It's a cool little unit because it has a Roku stick built in. That means that you can watch Netflix and Hulu and all of those things from the projector without having to have another unit to drive it. I got it so we could do outside sporting events like the Super Bowl, the Olympics. This past year on Halloween night, our baseball team was in the playoffs, or was in the World Series. So having that out where people could see it as they were out with their kids would have been cool. So that's kind of the plan going forward. So in order to use that projector outdoors, we have to have something to project it on. So today we're going to build a projector screen out of some parts that I picked up from the local hardware store. The plan is to have something that I can take apart and store easily, but then stand up, and it's an 8x10 screen for plenty of screen space so we can have outdoor movies, things like that. So I'm going to show you the hardware we picked up, and then we'll check out what my plan is. Hopefully what's in my head translates to real life, and it'll work. So let's see. All right, so here's the stuff I picked up. First and foremost, I got the screen. It's an 8x10 white tarp. Should hold up pretty good to the weather and the elements. I don't plan on leaving this outside, but I wanted something that would last a while. I got 5 sticks of 10-foot long 1-inch PVC and some various connectors to connect it all together. I've got all this in my head. I don't really have it drawn out or anything, so hopefully it makes sense once we get it put together. But we're going to have 2 of these 10-foot sticks across the top and the bottom. We're going to cut 2 of them down to 8 foot for the sides, and then use the residual 8 foot as legs to make it taller off the ground. And then the 5th stick will be cut into 4 chunks and used for feet. So I'm going to get started kind of piecing it together and laying it out, and then we'll see how it looks and if it's going to fit the tarp, and then we'll start cutting and putting everything together. All right, so the plan is to have enough space between the frame and the tarp to be able to pull it tight with zip ties so it doesn't blow in the breeze. So I'm going to pull this down nice and snug and then just kind of mark it here. And then I'll measure what that is, replicate it on the other side. We'll cut it here. We're going to use those T-fittings over there to put the bottom bar across. And then what's left over here will be the legs to keep it up off the ground. At least that's the plan. All right, I'm going to go ahead and go with 8 foot 1 inch to give myself some extra space around the tarp. That, along with the couplers, adds a little bit of space, so it should be good. I got them marked from this end. Since they're both 10 foot long, I just went 23 inches down to here. I'm going to lop them off real quick with the Sawzall down there, and then we'll piece it together and see how it looks. All right, so that's the general layout. I'm gonna put a couple more zip ties on there to snug it up. I haven't tightened them any of them up yet because I want to get it all laid out and straight, and then I'll tighten them up to pull it tight. Eventually, I'm probably going to change it over to reusable zip ties or some other form of connector, maybe some bungee type connectors, so that I don't waste 20 zip ties every time I put it up and take it down, because I want to be able to store it easily. That's why I'm not gluing the joints. It'll just be pop it up, use it, put it back down, and store it. The next step will be cutting this long one into 4 even pieces, and I'll use these last 2 T-connectors to make legs for the base, and then we'll be able to stand it up and see how it looks. All right, so this pipe is 10 feet long. So I went with an even 2.5 feet for each of my marks. That'll give us a 5 foot wide base, which should be plenty wide enough to stand it up. I may also fill the base with sand or water to give it a little more weight. If it becomes a big problem, I'll get different T-connectors and use a bigger pipe than this so that I can fill it with sand or water and have even more weight. Or you could just throw something heavy over the base of it. I'm going to go ahead and cut these up real quick, and then we'll put it together. Well, it's up. What I had in my head translated to physical parts, and it worked. But I think the pipe that I bought is just too flimsy. Just a little bit of wind we have today is pushing it and bending it and not wanting to let it stand up straight. So I may have to redo it in heavier pipe or switch over to metal conduit, which I really don't want to do because I want it to be light and easy to store. But as you can see, it's leaning pretty good, and it's not even windy today. There's very little wind under this carport, and it's leaning back pretty good. So I'm not sure yet. We'll have to see how it works. All right, so I did some debating and some thinking. I really don't want to more than double the cost of the materials to make this out of heavier PVC. So I think what I'm going to do is use some tent stakes and some string, or some weights and some string, and just tie out the top to 4 tie down spots and see if it holds up that way. It'll still be easily portable, and I can tie strings up there and then bring them down to some weights or some tent stakes, depending on what surface I'm on, to hold the top up. And then I'm going to try to find some bungee balls or something that's reusable that I can use in place of these zip ties, because I don't want to spend 30 zip ties every time I want to put this thing up and take it down. And I can't leave them loose like that because the fabric is so loose right now. If I tighten them up enough to tighten the fabric, I don't think I'll be able to slide them off. But the concept worked and it's up. It's just going to take a little bit of manipulating to make it work for good. All right, so I think I got this thing figured out. Now, to call me a pack rat would be an understatement. I hardly ever throw away anything. So I went digging around in my stash upstairs and I found some hardware that I think is going to work out perfect. Now, this is not the final form. This is just a proof of concept. But so far it's holding, and we'll see how well it holds when the wind picks up. But let me show you what I got. All right, so I found these tent tie-out strings. They've got clips on the end and these little sliders to allow you to tighten them up. And I found some tent stakes. So if I'm setting up on grass, I can use the tent stakes and these strings. And if I'm setting up on the concrete like I have now, I'm just using some weights. These 5-pounders aren't quite heavy enough. The wind still pushes them around, but I've got some 10-pounders upstairs that I think will work better. So that's going to be the plan. I also found some Velcro cable tie type material. So I'm going to use that in place of some of these zip ties. Should be reusable and should still give me enough to tighten down the tarp. So I'm going to put some of those on, upgrade to the 10-pound plates, stand it back up and see how it fits, see how it works. All right, I think I've gotten to a point where I'm happy with it now. It's up, it's stable. I upgraded to the 10-pound weights. I got the projector out and set it up, turned it on, but it's still too bright out here to see anything. So we'll have to try it once it gets a little darker. But it's up for now. I still need to tighten up some of the tarp, but I don't plan on leaving it up a long time, so I'm not going to go through the hassle. The Velcros worked really good, so I think I'm just going to get some more of those. They will be reusable and they're easy enough to tighten up. The 10-pound weights seem to be holding. It's not super windy today, but it's enough to know that it'll hold up. And out in the grass, of course, I can use these tent stakes and they won't pull out. So I think we can call this one done. Thank you guys for hanging out with me again today here in this brisk, cool day in South Texas. It's always fun to take something that's in your head and make it something real. It's pretty satisfying. So hopefully this works out. We can use it in the future for our movie nights and such. But until then, you guys have a good one. Rock on.